Welcome, friends. It's almost midnight, and you've found your way to the PikeCast. Come along as we careen through the catalog of the most formative horror writer of our young adult days, Christopher Pike. From adult perspectives, we'll revisit these YA books our parents probably would never have let us read had they known what lie inside. We tackle one book per episode in a freewheeling and unbiased chat. So grab your battered paperback, pull the flashlight from the kitchen drawer, climb under your bed covers, and devour a good book with us.
Greetings, fellow Pikers, and welcome to the PikeCast. I'm Cooper Beckett, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my lovely co-hosts.
Hi, I'm Cassie.
Hi, I'm Becca.
Today, we are digging into Christopher Pike's 1990 book, Fall into Darkness. We're going to be dissecting it in great detail, spoiling each and every plot twist, so consider yourself warned. If you're enjoying the PikeCast, please leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. We appreciate each and every review, even the negative ones, which I may bring up tonight. And welcome to our guest Piker this week, Jennifer Ann Gordon, gothic horror novelist of From Daylight to Madness and When the Sleeping Dead Still Talk, and host of video podcast Vox Vomitus. Thank you so much for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Cooper. I won't lie, I'm a huge Pike nerd. So when I even heard that there was a Christopher Pike podcast, I was like, I have to get on that show. And so thank you for allowing me to be here.
It is our pleasure to have you. Before we get into the book itself, we have some questions we like to ask every guest. So Cassie, why don't you take it away?
So tell me, you said you really, really love Pike. So I want to know, how did you discover Christopher Pike?
So Christopher Pike actually came to me. I found him because when I was 10, I snuck into my uncle's room because he was staying at our house, and he had a copy of Pet Sematary. So I read Pet Sematary by Stephen King, and at 10.
That's a rough one.
It was rough. And I hid behind my dollhouse, and I remember reading it and thinking, my parents are going to fucking kill me if they know I'm reading this book.
And then presumably bury you in the pet cemetery and resurrect you.
Right. Yeah. But in my defense, I thought it was going to be a book about a cat because it was that mass market 80s cover with like the cat on it. So I was like, oh, a grown-up book about cats. Amazing. So I was thoroughly traumatized, but not traumatized enough to not want to continue reading dark books. So my parents always bought me books. They would never say no to books. And I was deeply involved in the Sweet Valley High series before that. But then every time I would go to the bookstore, I'd wander into like the adult horror section. And my mom would be like, this is not for you. Like, you are 10, you go to Catholic school, walk me back over to like, at the time, the YA section, which was just like 5 shelves of Sweet Valley High, 3 shelves of the Babysitter's Club. And then like way down on the bottom shelf were the dark books, the R.L. Steins, the Christopher Pike. So that is how that's how I found Pike. It was like Stephen King was a gateway drug to Christopher Pike. And I want to say the first book I read was Slumber Party. I think that was the first one. And that also gave me a lifelong fixation with any kind of book or movie or TV show where it's like a bunch of girls did something wrong at a slumber party and now they have to pay.
Yes, I love that. I love those.
I will read anything. Yeah. Exactly. Like, oh my gosh, somebody brought a Ouija board and then like set a girl on fire. Awesome. Or like, oh, there was a skiing accident and like, they tripped one of them and now she's crippled. Somebody's got to pay and it's going to be that, I love it. It made me watch every season of Pretty Little Liars too, because it was like the same.
I love that show. That's like my guilty pleasure.
That show deserves its own podcast.
You're not wrong. That is such a good show. And I will go back and watch it and there are still things and I'm like, oh, I never noticed that. Or now that I know things, I'm like, look at that glance. I know what that glance means. Yeah. It's so fun.
Yeah. I've watched the entire series twice. And as like, I'm over 40, so I'm not really the target audience for it. But
I have a new question for our guests here.
Oh.
Because we're finding basically all of our guests are my age, which I love. What was the name of the bookstore?
Oh, it was Booksmith in the Bedford Mall in Bedford, New Hampshire.
Wow, mine was Walden Books.
Oh, Walden Books.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Okay, go on, Cassie.
And here I'm thinking, like, remember bookstores?
Yeah.
The good
Remember
old
when
days.
everything wasn't just Barnes and Noble
Yeah, or Amazon.
or Amazon? Yeah,
I don't even have a Barnes and Noble, so I'm like really jealous of anyone who does.
Oh no. That sucks. I'm sorry.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay. I survived, but it's a big bummer.
Somehow.
Yeah,
Somehow you
somehow.
survived.
I wish I could just walk through the aisles of a bookstore again. Because back in my day, I'm only like 30.
Back in
But,
the-
I was going to say,
But-
you sound like you're 20. Back in
thank
my
you.
day.
but yeah, I also had Walden Books when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I had Borders.
Oh,
Yeah.
me too.
Borders only disappeared recently, you know.
Yeah.
I get excited by Crocs and Brentanos
Okay.
and
A lot.
B.
It was like almost a
Daltons.
decade
Oh, B.
ago.
Daltons, I remember. Golly, I'm old.
Look, us in our 30s whippersnappers, you know, we remember Borders.
I'm in my early 40s. So
I like wake up in the morning holding my back because it hurts, and I'm just like, me, a whippersnapper.
I mean, that is the only thing that, you know, that's what growing up is your back just starts to hurt more and more.
More.
Yes,
Yeah,
I pull
exactly.
a muscle in my neck, and every time I turn my head for the rest of my life, I feel like I can feel it. Okay, so enough about my muscle stuff.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
back to our question. Sorry.
Let's not become the Achies podcast.
I know. Okay, so what's the thing about Christopher Pike's books that keep them on your mind and that make him stand out for you?
There's a comfort level there because I think, you know, once you've read like 4 or 5 Christopher Pike books, there is like a rhythm to how it goes. You can kind of see who the villain is going to be. Like you're like, oh, it's the sickly kid again, or it's the skinny awkward kid, or the one that like might have had cancer, but maybe he didn't. You know, that's always the villain. And
But
I like,
probably AIDS, honestly.
yeah. And I think for me, it's the comfort of him, and it reminds me of being in 6th grade and obsessively reading Chain Letter like over and over and over again.
Mhm.
You know, I just, and the books are good. They're bingeable. They're, you know, they're so bingeable. Like you can read them on the exercise bike or the treadmill because you're over 40 and you have to do those things every single day or your body falls apart.
I'm just gonna let mine fall apart. I'm telling y'all right now, I am not getting on a treadmill. I am so
You're just
lazy.
gonna
Yeah.
allow nature to take its course.
I'll just deteriorate. Yeah, become one with the earth again.
Okay. I think there's a pet cemetery that we could probably do.
There is.
So, what would you consider to be some of your favorite Pike books?
Oh, my all-time favorite is Chain Letter because I have gone through multiple copies of that book. Like I read it so many times that like the spine was breaking and it was falling apart. And then I bought a new one because I wanted to keep one like kind of pristine. And then I remember I had a cat. His name was Casper, and he was an asshole. And Casper scratched the hell out of the cover, like ripped it to shreds. And I was like, I can't believe I have to buy this book again. Like I only have a $2 allowance.
I mean, that seems aggressively dickish, even for a cat.
Yeah, because I felt like he knew that it was special to me. And I think he had some issues because I am allergic to cats. I did have a cat growing up. I have a cat now, but I didn't like pet him as much as as much as he wanted. And I think he kind of loved me wrong. He definitely loved me in a Christopher Pike sickly boy kind of way.
A Chad kind of way.
A Chad, I know. I was going to say a Chad way. He loved me the way Chad loved people. So yeah, sorry, already going into Fall into Darkness.
No.
So yeah, So Casper ruined my copy of Chain Letter, and then I had to buy another one, and that one I kept specifically in the drawer next to my bed. I didn't even want it like out in public.
Wow.
So Chain Letter was my favorite, followed by Weekend.
Okay, so you're going with early Pike, because I believe
Early
Chain
Pike.
Letter and Weekend and Slumber Party were all still point horror.
Yes, they were. And then I did like the Final Friends books.
Yeah.
But once he started going like super vampire-y,
Yes.
I did not enjoy that. I was like, where is my sickly boy and my and like the really beautiful girl who has the really nice car, and the girl who's, still really pretty, but her car's not as nice and she's not quite as beautiful. And there's no parents anywhere.
No parents anywhere.
No parents anywhere. Even, Sharon's on trial for murder, and her mom doesn't
doesn't even get a name.
No, and she never says anything at all. Like, she's like, oh, I sort of wanted to, like, see my mom before, like, because I'm free from jail, but instead I'm going to go hang out with Chad.
Yeah, literally the only thing her mom does in this book is encourage her to fuck her lawyer.
Yes. And that's another thing. It's like there are the things about these books that don't age well, and it's the 16-year-old girls. Yeah.
Problematic section. Yeah. But before we actually dig in, because I feel like we're raring to go here, Becca, you've got the back of the book this week?
Yes, I do.
Hit it.
They said she murdered her best friend. The trial is for murder. Anne Rice is dead. Her best friend Sharon McKay stands accused, but there is no body, and the 3 witnesses to the crime only heard what happened and did not see it. Nevertheless, the prosecution is almost certain of victory. Anne was alone in the dark with Sharon on top of the cliff when Anne fell the 500 feet into the torrential river that claimed her life. There is only one route leading to the cliff, and all the witnesses can remember hearing the girls arguing before the fall occurred. Sharon's only defense is that Anne committed suicide, but everyone who knew Anne, including Sharon, said she was not the suicidal type, and they were right. Anne was much more than suicidal. She was obsessed. Dun dun dun. I did that for you, Cassie.
Thank
Dun,
you.
dun, dun, yeah. Now we move to the front of the book. And the Fall into Darkness, I feel like this has one of the most iconic covers in all of Pikedom. And I think it's because of the Anne bracelet at the bottom that doesn't actually appear in the book.
That's what I was going to say. I thought it was a choker, like a necklace, like the one that Carrie wore on Sex and the City.
It very well could be.
Yeah.
So
also, there's like it's the wrong amount of people at the top, too. Like there should be one more person, because it's Fred, it's Paul, it's Chad, and Sharon.
Let's be honest. Fred is not a character at all. Like he could be lifted out of the book completely, and nothing would change.
Yeah,
nothing.
But he did see like the rock thing and then do nothing about it. Just like, should I pick that up?
Should I tell anybody about it? I don't know.
No, I don't know. It doesn't seem important.
We have 3 people on top of the cliff. We have a choker or a necklace or a bracelet, and no body. No body. Mr. Body's body is gone.
Yeah.
But in general, I think the cover and the back of the book actually reasonably reflect what's inside the book.
That's true.
And it's always a challenge with Pike's work on whether or not we're getting what was promised to us.
Yes, it's true.
I mean, we've all been a little gun shy ever since Midnight Club steadfastly sold us the book that was not in between the pages.
I love the cover, but I will say I patiently was waiting for the Anne necklace and or bracelet the entire time, because I was like, that's the thing that's going to tie it all together. And then there is jewelry that ties it all together, but it's not this necklace.
I mean, it's almost as though they told Brian Kotsky, the artist, there's some jewelry involved.
And he's like, oh,
And
she must have a necklace that has her name on it.
exactly. And he interpreted it in his own way rather than actually knowing what is going on there.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing's great. It just, it like you said, it gives you what's actually going to happen. And the back of the cover does tell you. It's like, okay, a girl fell to her death, or did she? There's no body.
Yeah, right.
Ooh. And of course, right when you see that there's no body, you're like, well, of course she's still alive and being held captive by Chad. And the second you meet Chad, I was like, oh, I see what happened here.
Yeah. Well, let's move into the Midnight Club and start talking about these characters here. Our lead is Sharon McKay, 18. Sharon, as you mentioned earlier, has a nose that has a slight bump on it, a jaw that is perhaps a shade too square. That is how Sharon is imperfect. And that is why she's our lead and not the bad guy.
Yeah. So she's also very talented, and she has long, slender fingers, even though she is only 5 feet tall. So
Yeah,
because
only
she's
5 feet.
right, like she's practically a little person. But like that's why she's always the lead. The beautiful vixen who always ends up dead first, or or deserves to die first, is always at least 5'6" or 5'7", and they always drive a beautiful red car of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And usually have an exceptional body that is ideal for modeling and moving to California.
Yes. Yeah. Long, luscious hair that like somehow just like curls magically, even though clearly they're on like a camping trip and it should be humid and disgusting, but her hair is like beautiful. She's very body positive, our villain girl. She always, takes her clothes off randomly to sunbathe at random times during many Pike books. Like, it's just like a girl going, what if my top pops off? You're like, what? You're 17. When I was 17,
I
if somebody...
really liked Sharon, actually.
Did you like Sharon?
I did. And mostly I liked her because of the way she bantered when Chad was trying to kill her.
Yes. Yeah.
I really dug her back and forth with him at the end of the book. It's I'm looking for my example. Oh yeah. How will you explain these rope burns? Let me worry about that, Sharon. Oh, I'm just trying to be helpful.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of the time when she is typical, panicky waif Pike hero, but she's got a weird sarcasm to her that we don't get in a lot of Pike characters.
It's true. Like, there's that part when Chad's like, oh, you hurt my eyes. And she goes, well, excuse me. Like, he's trying to kill her, and he's, like, whining about it. Like, oh, you hurt me. And then, like, he's just like, well, am I a good kisser at least? And she's like, no.
Well, I can't wait to talk about Chad. But we're going to wait.
Oh, I just don't have an opinion on Sharon. She seemed pretty basic to me. So,
but what about her extraordinary piano ability?
I mean, I guess
she's going to Juilliard.
She's going to Juilliard.
I'm proud
and she's
of her.
Only 5 feet tall.
Yeah, I don't understand why her height has anything to do with her slender fingers. Like, is that a connection I'm missing?
Well,
yeah,
I don't know how tall
you are.
People
not have slender fingers.
Yeah, like, so I'm 5'2", and my fingers are slender, but they're not. I don't have piano hands, because I did take piano when I was a kid, and I remember my teacher saying, "You're never going to be great at this because you don't have piano hands."
Yeah, if you can't reach an octave between your thumb and pinky, you don't have piano hands.
Yeah, you're useless.
My fingers are chubby, so I don't think I'll ever be able to play piano. Damn it.
Is that something you wanted to take up, Becca, really honestly at this point in your life?
No, I'm actually looking into trying the ukulele. Like, that seems like way more fun to me, so,
And that fits
I bought a ukulele. I bought a ukulele at Goodwill because I thought this is going to be really easy to play because look how small the instrument is. But it's still like a guitar. You still have to learn it, which I didn't do.
Yeah.
I ended up selling it.
It's not the size of the instrument.
Becca, if you want to learn, I can give you resources and stuff because I got one and learned how to play it, and I can play like 15 songs now.
Nice.
Yeah, Cassie, that's also a very you instrument, I feel like.
Yeah.
We're just
And also, Becca, if you ever decide to play piano, I'm sure there are a lot of children in the world who manage with their little short fingers.
Oh, that's
so
true.
fine.
And you can get a keyboard really of any size now. So
I can still live my
your
dreams.
octave-spanning hands don't need to be grand piano hands.
Nice.
Miss Musician, you got this.
Piano's for everybody now. But back when
Well,
I was a kid, it wasn't for short, stubby-fingered girls.
Let's talk about Anne.
Anne,
Because she's very interesting to me because she's a villain, she's a victim, she's conniving. There's a lot to this character, and more than we usually get from Pike's villains, I think.
So I agree. I thought out of all the characters in the book, she was the one that was interesting to me. Because I didn't really always understand where she was coming from, but I think emotionally at her core, she was just like a very broken, incredibly lonely girl with this big bravado over her. But she was a great villain because I did feel bad when she died too. I was just like, oh man, like because she,
and for her to die off camera.
I know. I was still hoping that she was alive in the cave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Sharon drank the water and she was like, oh, and the water tasted right then, I'm like, oh, gross.
Oh.
So Anne is not merely homecoming pretty. She has that rare face that movie producers and fashion scouts would cross oceans for. There is our Hollywood connection, which is a Pikeism that comes up over and over. Her eyes were cool liquid green, her lips pouty and red. People occasionally thought her long fall of dark hair was a wig. It was so fine and perfect.
Oh, God. One day I would love somebody to describe me the way Christopher Pike describes his, villain women.
He's always far more fascinated with them than
yeah.
the heroes.
Well, because they're gorgeous. They're almost ethereally unearthly beautiful. They're so beautiful that they really have this hypnotic power over every other male character and even the female characters that they run into.
Indeed. So, Becca and Cassie, I'm going to ask right away because I waited last time. Sugar sister potential.
Okay, so. Okay. Funny that you say that again, because in my notes again, I said, did I find my new Alexa closer? I was lost it in my notes. Anyway, I can't find it now. But anyway, I actually wrote Alexa in my notes again. Because,
yeah.
Okay. So, one thing I found kind of interesting is before we know that there's more to the problem than just Chad coming in later, you think that the whole issue would be Anne faking her death and trying to get Sharon in trouble. So I thought it was really interesting that right away when we get Anne's I guess chapter point of view, she straight up lays down her motive and how she did it. We were only 3 chapters in and she's breaking it down. And I was like, Alexa, is that you?
And extensively, yeah. I have a paragraph highlighted here where she lays out literally everything about her ropes, the distance from the cliff to the water. Which, I mean, it's wow, she has thought this through.
Right.
Yeah. She's it's a little Hannibal Lecter there. You can tell she's not only astoundingly beautiful, she's hyper intelligent.
Yes, exactly.
And fearless.
And I mean, it's it's another Pike plot twist that requires literally everything to work exactly in tandem, and then everyone's surprised when it doesn't quite work.
Right. Exactly.
You probably should have thought of that part, contingency plans are great. But no contingency plan for
they
Anne.
never have them. So I was a little surprised at the the info dump that Anne laid on us was like, here's the plan. This is every single thing.
Yeah, so
Voila.
early too.
So early. I was like, I was expecting this to happen, 3/4 of the way through the book.
Right.
Mhm.
And then the Chad reveal, we would be like, oh no, it was Chad all along. But it was really early on. And so part of me, as I was reading it, I didn't have that same like desire of like, oh my gosh, I wonder how she did it, because she already told us how she did it.
Cassie.
And
Yeah.
Cassie, I know you love a good monologue.
Yeah, no, I like her. I do. She's one of my favorite characters, but I do think that we shouldn't give her credit for like being so smart, because again, like all of those ideas were planted into her head, so she didn't really come up with any of that by herself.
Well, I mean, I will question, because Chad is a vehemently unreliable narrator.
Yeah, because
So
he didn't even know that they didn't have the same birthday. Because remember, like
all
Chad's.
this, I planted this stuff. That's only if you believe him.
Well, he says it to her, and she doesn't argue.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like he's like, "I gave you the book," and she's like, "Well, yeah," and he's
I
like,
mean,
"Well, I
she's
told you
also
about
had a
the
very rough night.
That's
Yeah,
true. That's true.
That's
But
a
I feel like
concoction at this point.
Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, sure, I guess you did it.
I don't have any reason to disbelieve that, I guess, because I feel like it makes sense. The thing about the birthday did not make sense, because I think that was just something Pike threw in there to make the ring make sense, because like, how are you close friends and in love with this girl for a decade and you don't know her actually birthday? Like, she had to have celebrated her birthday in those 10 years. So that part, like the birthday part, did not make sense to me at all.
Especially because he thought it was on his birthday. Like, that's a pretty big day for you to forget somebody else. Like, if it was the same birthday, you would know that.
Yes,
No, I think what it is he revised his memory.
Yeah, because he kept saying, we're so close, we think the same thoughts, we're practically the same person. So I thought of it as like this almost like weird schizoaffective thing where he was kind of merging his mind and Anne's mind together because they were such soulmates.
And I feel like having it June and July, they're close enough that you could mistake it once and then build your narrative based on that, I think. And that's really what I got from him, is he has revised his narrative so many times to fit what he believes, that's why he believes it. It's not that they didn't celebrate it. It's even if they celebrated it on her birthday, he would still believe they had the same birthday, I think.
I get what you're putting down. I see it.
So let's talk about Chad, because I've been criticized multiple times for throwing the word incel around on this podcast. And I'm going to do it again.
I wrote that word in my book when I was reading it. I wrote incel, and then I think on like a few pages later I wrote school shooter ?
Yeah, exactly. Chad is I mean, first of all, his name is Chad, and that really just sells everything, because Chad is the name of, it's like Karen. It has become a name of a type of human rather than just a name.
It made me feel like it was so cutting edge. I'm like, oh my gosh, Christopher Pike named him Chad before we were even calling all these people Chads.
Perhaps it's part of what made it the zeitgeist. You never know where Chad came from. So here is the perfect example of incel. Like, literally, he has created the world that he wants to believe he's the victim in. And like everything about him, I threw around incel when we were talking about Herb, but Herb is not. He's near, he's adjacent. And actually, ladies, would you agree that Chad is exactly what I was arguing Jeremy was last time?
Yes, I think. I definitely think this guy is way more like sleazeball creepy. Like, he'll shoot people and hurt people and stuff if he doesn't get his way later than Jeremy, for sure.
Yeah,
because there's like no part of me that feels like Chad's like this innocent little person.
Yeah, he is. Like he killed
He killed Anne's mom.
He killed Anne's mom. He killed
killed her
Anne's
brother.
brother, and then he killed Anne.
Yeah. And he was
So
going
he
to
knocked
kill.
out an entire family, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. That entire, like, huge, rich family that, he was like their lawn boy.
And he inadvertently gave Paul a lot of money.
Yeah. And so Paul is his half brother, right?
Right.
That's what.
Right.
And so Paul lives with him, and they live with, I believe, Chad's father. And there's no mention of Chad's mother, is there? Because of course there isn't. So
and
I
there's
feel
very
like,
little mention of Chad's father, too.
right. So my thinking was Chad's mom bolted, and when Chad was young, and he's had mommy issues and abandonment issues since day one, and now he likes to use that to manipulate people into being his friend, because there's no reason why somebody as beautiful as Anne would be friends with a Chad. She wouldn't.
Anne is Chad's employer,
yeah,
too. So we get that. Yeah, there's so much creepy about Chad. Really, here's the funniest things about this is I feel like this specific character could be written today more so than any other Pike character we've encountered so far, because he is so relevant in the way he manipulates. Like, specifically, I have first he asks, "May I kiss you?" because that's not a thing people did back then.
Right.
But then the most red flaggy, the most like this is manipulation, is when Sharon stops and then Chad goes into his shame spiral that basically manipulates Sharon into saying, "No, I want that. No, you're a good guy. No, you were a good kisser." Like, really easily makes her feel bad for him and uses that to get what he wants.
Yes. Yeah.
It's something else.
It's he's creepy. He's, he has like these narcissistic tendencies that that he really is able to like get inside of these girls, especially, Anne and Sharon's heads, and make them believe that A, they're friends, and yeah, like you said, that B, like Sharon wanted to go out with them. He made he was able to turn her emotions of disgust into, "Oh, look at you, you're hurting my feelings." And she immediately was like, "No, I didn't mean it like that. Of course I like you."
And then even at the end, he's still playing his games. He's so horrifically broken that he's doing the as he's down on the cliff that she knocked him off of. Can I still go out with you? And Sharon has to say, "I'm afraid not, Chad."
I know. He's like about to die, and he's like, "Am I really a lousy kisser?"
Yeah. And then he plays his manipulation game with, "Well, then I'm going to kill myself."
Yeah.
It's so, yeah, incel, capital I, incel. And to that listener who's upset with me calling people incels, this is the incel right here.
Yeah, it checks off all the boxes. He's killed people, lonely, psychological disorder, absentee parents, jealousy, lives in a fantasy world.
Yeah. And does that thing where he gets really close to the girl he likes so he can then eventually just blur that line. Like, his brother is dating her.
Yeah. His brother's
His brother is having
to her.
Yeah. That confused me. Were they actually engaged? Because
I don't know.
It didn't seem like it.
No, I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. At first I thought, oh, did they just say they were engaged so Paul could get half the money? And then I was still confused because I was like, does she just need him to have half the money because she thinks he's going to bring it to her down in Mexico?
I mean, he'd have to because she couldn't access it.
Exactly. But why would she have even trusted him? That's the other thing. Like, they didn't even
That's a
really
good question.
because I mean, she says it. She says things. She's like, "Well, I love him and I need him, but like I don't trust him and I don't really like him." But
Well, before we move to Paul, because we are going there next, I do want to mention Chad's description here that he had always been thin, but now he was a bag of bones. His curly brown hair hung long and uncombed over the sides of his head. His loss of weight made his prominent nose and large, moist eyes appear to jump out of his face. And that's an upsetting description as far as
I
I'm
know it reminded me of like a sickly Ichabod Crane with like conjunctivitis, like moist eyes. That was the part I was like, what does that mean? Are they like seepy? Is it like allergies? Is he always crying? No.
Yeah, it's like in the cartoons when they have when Stimpy has the giant eyes
Yes.
and the extra reflective light in them. Yeah, that's what it is.
I know, but I've never like looked at somebody and said, "Oh, they have moist eyes." Like
Yeah,
that's
just moist eyes.
moist. Oh, what kind of eyes do they have? Oh, they're moist. Anne has like sparkling sea green eyes or whatever, like, rippling green eyes. Emerald eyes. And Chad, his eyes were moist. And it's also a disgusting word, so that's why
it really is.
So last week I discussed how, like, when Christopher Pike's like, oh, this person killed this person, or like makes that person obviously the killer, I like just go for it. I felt the same about Chad. Like, in the beginning, I thought Chad was a great guy. Like, there was no... I was blaming Fred. I was blaming Paul. I was blaming
You're blaming Fred. Fred doesn't even have character.
I mean,
I was like, it's not going to be Fred. Fred doesn't even have a last name.
Like, when he was, like, kind of being rude to Sharon, like, hey, you push this woman off the cliff. Just a random woman. No, you push Anne off the cliff. I was like, oh, he seems suspicious. But anyway.
That's true. Fred does become a dick very quickly.
Yeah, so I honestly didn't think Chad was bad until he flat out was like, hey, I'm going to kill you. And so, but then I didn't like him anymore. Trust me. I stopped. But,
and to be clear, I did not immediately think Chad's the bad guy. I just immediately thought, boy, Chad's a little just pathetic and creepy. I don't like him, but I didn't think, oh, he's the murderer. I didn't think he would be the big bad of the book because I still thought Anne was the big bad.
Right.
Yeah, I thought Anne was still alive.
Yeah.
You didn't find him creepy?
Not in the beginning. No, I was like, oh, he's just a sweet little brother.
Oh.
I guess I
you don't want to date the sweet little brother, right, Becca?
No.
Okay.
I mean, his
so
name
if he was the sweet little brother who was telling you, oh, but I love you, but I'm just being silly, but I love you, but I'm just being silly.
Does he do that in the beginning?
No.
Okay,
but I feel like he would.
Well, I guess I just didn't get that from him because I don't know. I guess I don't know. I just need it to be like in front of my face and where it's like Chad is a creep. Like the very beginning.
So you need that Anne necklace. You need Chad wearing one that says "bad guy."
Yes.
Like incel.
That's fair.
But what about that scene when he's rubbing Sharon's back while Anne is in her panties, sunning herself, and he's just talking about, like, nobody will ever like me because I'm so homely. So, are you and Fred having sex? Like all that weird stuff. And like,
I get what you're putting down. I felt like kind of weird.
Yeah, and I think he was like playing up on that. Like, we've all met those guys and girls that are like, nobody will ever like me. I'm so unattractive. But yet at the same time, he's like rubbing her bare back.
That's
and she's
true.
like,
that is
I like
a
that.
sign.
Yeah.
And she's flirting with him at that point, even though she did bring a boyfriend with her on this trip.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of, that's one of the major reasons I think Fred could be lifted out, because clearly she doesn't even care about him.
I think she keeps forgetting Fred's there. Until he's just like, you're the murderer. And she's like, who are you again?
Pike is forgetting. Yeah.
The cover artist forgot.
Yeah, exactly. He is that forgettable that the author, the cover artist, really everyone almost forgot that he was there.
I know. Every time they mentioned him, I was just like, who? And I'm like, oh yeah,
Who's
Fred.
Fred now? You
I know.
mean
I was like,
Paul?
yeah. I'm like, you must mean other Paul, right?
I mean, I don't disagree. I'm with Becca. I didn't think he was creepy in the beginning. I mean, I've read this when I was like 14, but like if I had read this for the first time now, I wouldn't have thought he was creepy in the beginning. He seemed like sad, and he seemed like, no, Becca, I just mean because I know the story. I mean, like if this were my first time like you,
Okay.
and I would be with you 100%. And I don't think, even when he's like rubbing her back and stuff, like, I don't know, that didn't seem super creepy to me because she's like, I want you to rub my back. Go ahead and rub my
Right.
back. Please rub my back. And then she's like, rub my back.
No,
Like, she's like harder. Like, she's fucking creepy. She's the creep in that moment. Not to mention all the perverted comments she makes throughout. So, like, if anybody's a creep, it's a little bit of Sharon. And I mean,
True.
I'm not saying in the beginning of the book, toward the end, I was like, oh, fuck, kill him. Like, I was on board with
Mhm.
that whole thing. But
Uh-huh.
also, and his whole creepy thing, like in the caves, like, what kind of like psycho killer wants to be in a dark, wet cave with like a ton of pressure of water above your head threatening to kill you at any moment?
I
Like,
mean, he
how is
thought
that
they were
romantic for
romantic.
anyone?
Yeah.
Oh, that part gave me like chills. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'd vomit. Like, that makes me so creeped out. And then his like wet hands touch her and then put pressure on her arms. Ugh. After telling her about dead bodies that were probably there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how he
And
flirts.
about how he got lost in the
That's how he
caves
flirts. Yeah.
for
Yeah, no.
days,
So the
apparently.
cave thing, I thought that was really interesting because, so I know you guys are saying he was probably like, it seems weird that he's friends with Anne. I don't think it's weird because, again, they've been friends for a decade, since they were like 7 or 8 years old, which kids are
Mhm.
friends with anybody. Like, that's a normal thing. Like, there are a ton of super attractive people that in middle school I was not friends with, but I was friends with when I was like 8
Right,
because,
right.
I became a loser and they were super popular. So like, that happened. So I get that. But I think as they got older, maybe it was more of like a pity thing. And that's why she employed him, because
Mhm.
he didn't have
Yeah.
any money. He didn't have like probably very many friends if he's like super obsessed with her. So like, I think of Chad. I agree completely about what you guys are saying about the incel thing, but I think of him also as a little bit Betty Sue from like the Whisper of Death one, in that they were just like really lonely. Like, a lot of their life
Sure.
was
Yeah.
super, super lonely, and that like morphed them and made them bad inside their heads to where they feel like it's okay to kill people.
Yeah.
Fred,
Exactly.
I don't
But I feel
fucking
like
know why
that's
Fred
also
exists.
what they have in common, because Anne is actually a very lonely character too.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think I think for her, maybe having her brother there, whereas Chad and Paul, they weren't raised together, which they even point out later. He's like, I don't have a close connection to Paul. Like, I don't really give a shit. But Anne and Jerry grew up together and they were very close, and their parents died and they were all they had. So I think her loneliness was probably abated a little bit by Jerry's existence. And then when that went away, she just went a little like
Yeah.
off too.
And along those lines, Chad is right. They are both a little psychotic. Anne's plan is crazy.
Yeah, she's cray. Bitch be
Yeah.
cray. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a
wild plan.
wonderful line about Chad specifically while they're in the cave here. No wonder he had been able to survive for hours with his mind unaffected when his flashlight had failed in the darkness deep beneath the ground. It was because his mind was already cracked, already filled with darkness.
Yeah, see, that's legitimately good writing right there.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like when I think of Chad, I think of a character that like Evan Peters would play on American Horror Story.
Yes.
And he would,
Yes.
he's like Tate Donovan from Murder House, except not as attractive.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tate is
Yeah, he's
not
Tate.
watery-eyed.
Yeah, moist-eyed Tate.
Yeah. Well,
Tate with conjunctivitis.
Mhm.
And a lawn mowing job.
Okay, so Cassie, I have not watched the Fall into Darkness movie yet, but
Yeah.
does Jonathan Brandis play Chad?
yes.
Whoa!
There's a
He's
Fall
got
into
glasses.
Darkness
It's weird.
movie?
There is a
Yeah.
1996 TV movie. It's on YouTube, and we're going to do a group watch thing
Oh my
for this
gosh.
with our patrons, because I just watched the opening 30 seconds of it, and it is 90s.
It is.
Love it.
Oh
Solidly.
my God. But Jonathan Brandis plays Chad. That is mind-blowing right there. I don't want to know anymore because I'm fascinated by this.
I'm looking it up on IMDb right now.
I think
in general.
their character choices were interesting, and I think just for the time too, I think it was it's very interesting that they chose Tatiana Ali to play Sharon.
Yeah, I was surprised they went with a person of color for the lead.
Yeah, and she did really well. Like, obviously I won't go too much into it. We'll cover it when we go over that, but I watched it today and it's very solidly 90s.
Like so 90s that you're like, is this really the 80s? Like early Beverly Hills 90210, like that kind of 90s.
It was worse than early Beverly Hills 90210. I'm not even kidding. Like, it was like an after school special, some of the shots. It was so weird.
And it has that weird glowy sheen that early made for TV video productions have. Yeah. I can't explain it better than that, but when I turned it on, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I know exactly where and when this movie came from.
Oh gosh.
So let's move through our characters here. The only thing I want to say about Fred, beyond the fact that he is really not a character, are two lines directly from the book. First of all, he played guitar in a bar called Martyr, one town over from Wonderwood. That's an interesting bar name. I'm not judging it, but Martyr is an interesting bar name.
It made me think he would be a much more interesting character.
Yeah,
than he turned out to be. I was like,
this is his description. He didn't have a great physique. He was tall and gangly and walked with a slight stoop. His vision was awful. His glasses thick enough to be magnifying lenses. With his unkempt sandy hair and mustache, he looked very much like the starving artist he was.
He sounds awful.
Like a porn star.
Yeah, like from like the 70s.
Yeah. But one that's also a heroin addict.
Dirty, just completely dirty.
Or like somebody that would be like in the Manson family, but got no respect from Charles Manson. Like that level.
No, this is Tex Watson here. That's Fred. Tex Watson.
Can we laugh at the fact that he's a musician and his last name is Banda?
Yes.
I was like, he's like naming him. He's like, Fred, that's what I'll go with. What does he do? He's in a band. His last name's going to be Banda. Banda, that's good.
Exactly.
It might as well have been Fred Mustache Man, you know?
Fred Sandy Mustache.
I actually go over and over on the fact that he's just not a good singer.
Yeah.
And he claims to have written what's the Beatles song in it?
Oh yeah.
I forgot the song. They
I remember him even making the Lennon and McCartney joke.
Yeah, he claims to have written a Beatles song. So Fred is a worthless character, and he should have been removed. Like if I'm the editor, I remove him. Was he in the miniseries? Was it the TV show?
So this is a weird thing. I won't spoil it too much, but they do not have Fred. They have some other random guy who is a musician, but his name is different. I don't remember what it is now.
Okay.
It's Coda or something weird.
Well, there's someone at the studio saying,
more interesting in the movie. Can I say he's supposed to be like one of like their age, but he seems like double their age, so it's weird.
I love it.
Like he's the Luke Perry / Gabrielle Harris.
He's
got like slash hair though, like the. Like big, long, and curly, poofy. Yeah, you guys got to watch it. You got to see it.
Okay, so let's move on to Paul. I actually don't have any notes about Paul because
I have a quote and notes for Paul.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Take us away.
My notes on Paul are that he is very similar to Percy from Slumber Party in that he's like a drifter that doesn't have a job, but he's passionate about the things he's into. Like, okay, dude, he sounds like a loser to me. Like, he doesn't sound like somebody I would want to actively go out and be like, hey, want to get in bed with me? Like, you want to get down? Like, flirting with. It's so strange.
Who was dishonorably discharged from the army.
Yes. And then, but then the quote I have goes against how much I disliked him and what I just said, because this is just a good quote I loved. Like a book that tantalized with each turned page, he had a body she couldn't put down.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had that in my thirst section, but that is such a great line.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's it. That's like Paul is vastly manipulated by Anne and Chad and really does nothing at all of value in the entire book.
Yeah, well, he gets arrested at the end.
I mean, he does get arrested, but that he didn't do that. They did that.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
he had a lot of
and there's
potential.
Yeah, he did. There was a lot of interesting things in
Yeah.
his character. He just wasn't
We
interesting.
could have had more about him wanting, like, Anne's money. We could have had more about his anger problems, which is why he got discharged, isn't it? If I recall correctly.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
fighting.
Yeah.
And then they
there's-
made up the whole asthma thing.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
just so
Well,
much more they could have done.
I had that in my new what the fuck section, but I do need to call attention to the did people believe you could catch asthma in the 90s?
No, as an asthmatic, I had
Okay,
asthma in
that's
the
what I
90s,
thought.
and I didn't catch it.
Yeah, because literally a lawyer asks Paul, when did you catch this? Referring to asthma.
Right, but remember the lawyer, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Johnny
You know.
Johnny Richmond. We're going to
Johnny
talk about him.
Richmond. I always feel like he's the kind of guy who would do like finger guns every time he said his
Yeah.
own name.
Oh, he's definitely finger guns guy. Jerry Rice was 16 when he killed himself. He's not an on-screen character ever in the book, but he's a character, so I mention him. Does anyone have thoughts on Jerry?
I hate to say I love the characters that are never alive on screen or in the book, or those characters that everybody talks about the entire time.
Mhm.
Like, again, going to go back to Pretty Little Liars. Like, when everybody's obsessed with, I can't even remember the name of the girl who was supposedly dead. Allison. She was so much more interesting before she came back.
True.
Yeah, agreed. Completely agreed. She was like mysterious. It's like tragic, and that tragedy makes you like them more.
Yeah, so
I mean, that's the Laura Palmer thing.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Yes, the Laura Palmer thing, exactly. So I was like fascinated and heartbroken about Jerry because, I mean, it's teenage suicide. I wasn't even thinking murder at that point. I wasn't thinking Chad murdered him, but and just like, the little note, I loved her. Oh, it's just like the picture is painted of like a boy of pure tragedy and such heartfelt longing that he's like the true shining beacon among these people who are not super likable.
That's very true. That's very true.
Because, I mean, I like Sharon, but I struggled to like her.
I understand, yeah.
I rooted for her, but I was like, eh.
Well, I mean, you tend to root for the one that's not the bad guy in a situation where they might get killed.
Right. But there were so many pretty much bad guys in this. Like, everybody was morally, in a gray area at best. Paul, blank Fred, Chad.
Well, speaking of morally dubious,
Johnny Richmond.
Let's talk about the attorney at law, Johnny Richmond, who is blonde hair and blue-eyed with wide shoulders and an impeccably tailored sports coat, who looked as if he could have posed for Webster's definition of the word yuppie.
God. Yeah. So I just kept referring to him in my head as hot lawyer. Like, there's always like hot doctor, but he's like hot lawyer who weirdly, I feel like he's going to be Sharon's date to the prom. She's going to.
That was so upsetting to me. Like, I didn't even it didn't even really click at the beginning. So when he gets her off, I use that term specifically, and then says, "You can buy me a late lunch." And I thought Sharon was like, "Yeah, just lunch? Is that all you want?" Like she wants to give him more, but instead, no, she's concerned. You just want lunch, right? He's upsetting. He is really upsetting.
I mean, he's predatory. He's smarmy. And then, there's when Sharon was in jail and all the girls were talking about like, oh yeah, he's a great lawyer, but you need to pay him in certain ways.
Yes.
And I was
once
like,
they were on the outside, John wanted to be compensated and that he wasn't interested in money.
Right. And this is 1990, which I understand things have changed since 1990, but I'm pretty sure it still wasn't cool to be banging high school girls that are accused for murder when you're their lawyer.
And to have it be so well known that you're doing this.
Yeah. And, like Sharon's completely absentee mother. I mean, they went on that like date with him, and I think her mom was like into it, like, yeah, go for it. Like
She's
he's a
all
catch.
excited that Johnny's putting his hand on her leg.
Yeah. Ugh.
It's weird. It's weird and upsetting, but he's also doing like the greatest hits of TV lawyer, like that thing where he
Yes.
goes to the edge of the jury box and
And
taps
then
his knuckles there, and
and then
it's sort of
turns
like
around slowly.
yeah, exactly. So
When I read his dialogue, in my head I always read it in like one of those like Southern court drama accents.
yeah, he's oh shit, what McConaughey from A
Yeah.
Time to Kill.
Yes, it's that, except with like a law degree from, I don't know, like a community college or something like
Hollywood
that.
upstairs
Yeah.
law college.
Yeah. Like unaccredited internet law school. That's her, but pre-internet days, so.
And he actually says at the beginning, I'm your attorney. You can tell me the truth. I won't tell anybody, I promise.
Yeah.
Which, as far as I know, attorneys are of the opinion, I don't want to know if you did it because
Right.
I'm going to defend you from having done it. And if I know you did it, then I'm in a legal gray area.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
what I've got from actually like reading things like The Defense Never Rests and actual books about law and, and like studying.
So I shouldn't take all my law knowledge from Christopher Pike's legal drama, really.
Yeah,
right?
Probably not. Not from Johnny Richmond. Pew pew. Those are the finger
Johnny
guns.
Richmond, attorney at law.
Yeah. And it.
But really, this year the
also-
bar has been set very low for bad lawyers.
It's true. I've still felt like, I mean, he's still better than like a Rudy Giuliani.
Indeed.
If I had to choose Johnny Richmond or Rudy Giuliani, both would probably want me to touch their dicks to, for payment. But I would probably go with Johnny Richmond if I had to.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Pew, pew,
fired. I love it.
The finger guns. And I was also, the whole like legal aspect of this was amazingly funny to me because it was so fast. It was like, the trial lasted what? 2 days, 1 day, maybe 3 days. I don't know. But, questioning people for like 2 seconds and then like, no further questions. Like, what's happening? Really?
Yeah. There was very little cross-examination too.
I know.
Like, everyone's like, no, I'll just call him back later. Whatever.
Yeah. And I was just like, I don't think that's really how it works. I'm no lawyer. I'm no Johnny Richmond, but
I will say, I've heard that Pike does the lawyer thing frequently. Cassie, you're our Pike scholar over here.
Yeah, it's usually a lawyer or just like a cop and then there's like somebody doing interrogation and then somebody being questioned.
Right. So I enjoyed the courtroom drama aspect of this book. So I mean, I know that it's not at all a reasonable approximation of courtrooms. And we get the absent judge, the emotionally absent judge, and the shrew of a DA with Margaret Hanover here.
Oh, the Marcia Clark.
Yeah, exactly. And so like 90 we had not yet gotten to OJ.
I know, we
90.
hadn't, but
wow. Okay. So it was prescient.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I liked the courtroom stuff because I felt like it was all just almost like cardboard cutouts just being moved around, and it was like a pantomime of what a courtroom drama should be, like a community theater or a high school play, which of course that's what it is. So I like that. I mean, I like it when it's bad.
And you can also argue that all the courtroom scenes are from Sharon's point of view, unlike the rest of the book where we do sort of float between POVs.
Yeah.
But Sharon is the POV character in the courtroom. So therefore, she's under the trauma of being on trial. So not necessarily everything that's happening is happening the way she's seeing it, I think.
That's true. And she also, like, she and Johnny Richmond would have like these conversations at the table. And I'm like, are they whispering? Is she just saying this like out loud? Like, do something.
Yeah.
Aren't you? Don't
Yeah,
worry. Don't worry, sweetheart. I've got it. Like, what is...
yeah, or object on the relationship thing. Like she wanted him to object immediately.
Yeah.
We have two cops who I thought were one cop because they are both fat and surly.
Wait, there are two cops?
Sergeant Rick Patterson and Lieutenant George Artso.
Oh.
I have no idea.
Sergeant Rick Patterson is the one in court. Artso is the one who tries to arrest Sharon outside in the second half of the book.
Oh. Yeah. I thought that was the
I thought there was only one, but there are two.
Huh. I didn't know that.
It's another thing like Fred. It's another redundant character that could have been a little pared down and combined.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been. Because I thought it was.
So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to move into Remember Me, our plot discussion of Fall into Darkness. We'll be right back with more of the PikeCast.
Wow, friends. Where else can you get this kind of programming than the PikeCast? Nowhere, that's where. But we're trying to keep the lights on here. If you like what you're hearing and want it to keep happening, jump over to our Patreon at thepikecast.com/Patreon and throw us a few bucks to join our private Discord server. Higher tiers get books, stickers, bookmarks, and even personalized shirts. That's thepikecast.com/Patreon.
Once, Osgood and Frost were the up-and-coming stars of the burgeoning paranormal investigation TV show craze before a hoax put an end to their friendship, partnership, and television careers. Now, over a decade later, Prudence Osgood is a barely functioning alcoholic ghost hunter for hire. Her yearning for mystery and adventure is reignited when she receives a cryptic, untraceable email. She can't resist embarking on an investigation that tugs threads, winding through a sinister series of disappearances, her former partner's family, and a night 20 years ago when a semi blew a yellow light and nearly killed her. Reviewers are calling Osgood Is Gone a masterfully vulnerable and relatable 21st century horror story, and a bourbon-soaked supernatural mystery with sparkling dialogue that sticks the landing on LGBT characters, and main character Prudence Osgood, as tortured as she is clever, broken in all the best ways, and a true heroine for our times. Buy it today at Osgood Is Gone as a paperback, ebook, or audiobook narrated by me, JJ Ronvier.
Welcome back to the PikeCast. We are talking about Fall into Darkness today, and let's move into our section, Remember Me, where we talk about the plot. I really enjoyed the two timelines plot structure of this book. He's done it a few times in other books, but specifically this one I thought he set up so well, so we're getting information concurrently rather than before and after from the two timelines. There were just a few things I would have moved around, so we didn't get like the Chad reveal here, we got it here, but overall I really liked the dual timeline plot.
I did too, because I think it helped me kind of separate Anne and Sharon's friendship, because like the scenes where they're together, you just see them as like, friends who are kind of like rivals of each other. And I liked the timelines because that gave me a chance to like Sharon more. And it also gave me a chance to really get inside Anne's head, who, again, I think Anne's, out of all the characters in this book, I liked it a lot. I liked her a lot.
She's the most interesting, without question.
Yeah. So I liked, I liked the two timelines a lot too. And I liked that the courtroom drama was It was predominantly all courtroom drama when we were in the, like, present day or whatever. So it had a good differentiation in how it felt, how it read. So I think
And
the non-courtroom stuff was, like, to me, more like the Christopher Pike that I'm used to. The courtroom
Right.
stuff was still Christopher Pike, but less talk about, heaving breasts and beautiful cars.
And this is a structure he goes back to multiple times, because this is before Die Softly, which has that structure of, okay, we're starting in media res. Actually, we're starting after the story. We're going to flash back to the story, and then we're going to catch up to the story where the new information is revealed, because basically that's what we're doing. The flashbacks are part of this courtroom drama, because we're learning as we learn on the stand. And then when the courtroom drama is over, then we're in present day for the rest of the book. So it's a structure that he comes back to time and again, but it's a very effective structure, because it's kind of what makes it into that addictive book that you want to just keep reading, because something new is going to happen. And it's one of the things Pike does really well.
Yes, he really knows how to pace a story. Like, there's never been a Pike book that I've read that even the ones I don't like, I've never said, oh, this is kind of dragging.
Right. Yeah, even last time with Last Act, which I hated, I was never bored. I just didn't like it.
And that's a huge compliment for an author, to be like,
Yeah.
I hated it, but I couldn't stop reading it. So
Yeah, it wasn't a DNF, a do not finish.
yes,
which is death. That's
it
not a
is.
good sign
It
for a
is.
book. So not only is this an interestingly plotted book, but it's an incredibly complicated plot, because there's so much to think about in Anne's plan. Like in other books, that would be the entire complexity of the villain. But instead we get Chad, and Chad has such dramatically like he's woven himself into everything before we even knew that. And that's a really interesting 1-2 punch of, here's the bad guy, oh no, here's the worst guy who just killed the bad guy.
Yes. So, Chad, as gross and as much of an incel as he is, he also had, like, shades of Iago from Othello. Like, he was the one, stoking the fires of the entire story the entire time, and complicating it and muddying everything. He muddied the fact that Anne was with Paul because that was his brother. He muddied the relationship that Anne had with Jerry, and then, like, his memory, because he's like, oh no, your brother didn't kill himself. I murdered him. What? Like, what? Like,
And I killed her mom too.
I killed your mom too. And you know what? You don't hate Sharon. You've been saying you do, but you don't. And then Anne's like, you're right. I don't hate Sharon. Like, like
so less Iago and more Jafar with the staff.
Yeah,
I think
yes.
that would be pretty good.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. And I agreed when I got to that info dump of Anne's, of this is the plot, this is my plan, blah 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 blah. I was confused because I was like, we're in chapter 3. She told us everything. There's more to it. What is the more to it? Because normally that info dump comes, at the end, towards the end.
Yeah, we are used to the monologuing villain here in Pike, and we were just not used to it happening in chapter 2.
I know. I was like, why is this happening now?
I like the gory stuff in it.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of gory stuff in this book.
Yeah, like finding her body and stuff, and the way they described it, I didn't realize, but I remember that from, like, being little, and that's like finding a body in water. I'm scared if I'm walking by really shallow water to look down into it if I know that I can see the bottom, because I've always irrationally been afraid that I would see a dead body like staring up at me and that it might not have eyes because the fish ate them.
Yeah.
And then I reread this and I was like, oh shit, like this is why I'm like irrationally worried about that sort of thing.
So it's the origins. It's influenced you here.
Yeah, and I totally forgot.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we get that a lot here because we read, so many of us read Pike at such an impressionable young age, that there are things that either ping us, little fetishes that we've gotten because we read about it so early in Pike, fears we've gotten because we read about it so early in Pike. And I actually tweeted about this because I realized, I talk a lot about how I like the girls who can eat. And Pike loves that clearly. But I didn't realize that maybe this is part of it. This is why I like this. I didn't put it together that reading these books at 9 and 10, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that is where it came from. And I was happy that Pike specifically replied to my tweet about that. So, that's
I love
fun.
that. I've always had this like weird fear of like new developments, like new neighborhoods when like only one person
building
is
in
moved
progress.
Yeah. Or like, one house that somebody's living in and like the rest of them are still empty in those like long suburban streets. Cause I'm like, oh, and I know it goes back to chain letter because I'm like, but like even saying that now like gives me the heebie jeebies, like just thinking about like, what if I was in the only house that was inhabited in like this modern, beautiful neighborhood? But ugh.
And you really do need to, we really need to credit Pike's writing for this, is that, while a lot of his plots feel like they're a little recycled from noir or from Hitchcock or from Christie, we're also getting these little nuggets of stuff that our 9, 10, and 11-year-old minds had never encountered in fiction.
Yeah. And also like
that stays with you.
It does. And, I hate to say it too. It's like these books they're not sexual, but they do talk about sex. And there's like that, like kind of gross flirtiness that happens in all of his books that you're just like, like reading it now. I'm always like, oh, yuck. But I remember like being 10 and thinking like, oh, this is like how like what it's going to be like when I'm a teenager. I'm going to be like dating a 40-year-old lawyer or whatever,
I don't know. He's probably like 32 because all of these characters are very young.
Yes, and very gorgeous.
Yes, exactly. And it always makes me feel old.
I know I was feeling old when I read this because I was just like, oh, this creepy old lawyer. And then I'm like, he's probably 28.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So Cassie, coming back to this, as you said it last time, it is one of your favorites. How often have you revisited it?
I read it when I was like a teenager more than once. And then I think the last time I read it was probably when I was like 22 or 21 or something like that.
So it's been a while since you read it before. Did you find that the plot really stuck with you, or was it like uncovering new information again?
No, I remembered pretty much everything. The only thing, I didn't remember Fred at all. I forgot he was a character. So when I was watching the movie this morning and they had that other guy, I was like, I don't even remember that other guy. Who's he? And then I get to the book and it's Fred, who's totally different. And I was like, what the fuck? But like, aside from that, it was as I remembered. Like, I remembered really liking Anne. I remembered finding Sharon a little basic but pervy, and I still thought that. I remember
a little pervy, and it's fun.
She is. It is. No, yeah, she makes funny comments that I like. Some of the stuff she says. I'll save it for our thirst one. But
the thirst section is bigger than last time. Makes me happy.
Yeah, but I didn't. There was some stuff that I wasn't super clear on. Like I knew what happened overall in the whole story, but I didn't remember how we got to each thing. So that was fun to reread and see like the courtroom stuff play out in the conversations. I didn't really remember the lawyer very much, to be honest. And I don't remember being bothered by him as a kid, but this time around, I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, how are you?
I feel like, that could just go right over your head because it's not overt. It's just very, very uncomfortable when we're used to like legal ethics.
Yeah, and I think
And statutory
had
ages.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
and I think I was used to that sort of joking more with like people my age, that I didn't really have it in perspective that not just that they have an age difference, but just the power
Oh
positioning
yeah,
and like,
huge
Yeah.
power imbalance.
yeah, like I didn't really get that. Even when I was like in my early 20s, I didn't really fully understand that. So rereading it now, I'm just like, ugh, like gross.
I want to talk about the biggest interesting plot point as far as I'm concerned, and that is making Gimme a Kiss an active point in the plot. Give Me a Kiss, now I can't remember what year. Let me look. 1988. So 2 years old, this book, Give Me a Kiss. And it, it influences the characters in this book in that they read Give Me a Kiss and used it as a jumping off point for her own plot. And I haven't decided if it's clever or obnoxious.
I think it's
It can
clever.
be both.
It
Yeah,
can
I
be
like
both, yes.
I mean, they don't bluntly say the title of the book, so I feel like it's a cute little
True.
shout out to his like readers, because you wouldn't know that
I
unless
think
you
so
read
too.
his other books.
Yeah, and
I felt
I
like it
didn't
was
know
like
that
an
because I
Easter
only read the
egg.
book recently.
Yeah.
Like it was just like a wink to his fans. Because he could have easily used something like The Count of Monte Cristo or something like any book
exactly.
that is about revenge that everybody in the world knows. But instead, he chose a book that only his fans know.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I thought it was
I
fun.
think it's like a little nod to them. I know when I write, sometimes I throw little Easter eggs in, and I'm like, only the
Sure.
people that have read my books will see what I'm doing here.
And then like if we talk about Stephen King, he is probably the granddaddy of doing that. I mean, he even put himself in the Dark Tower literally 3 times. So it it's not obnoxious, you're right, or it can be both. I just found it profoundly interesting because it's only 2 years between these books. It's not like 20 years later he's referencing an early thing. He's got a similar plot in 2 books 2 years apart and then calls attention to it rather than just letting people realize. It's like, no, I know it's a similar revenge plot. Well, that's where she got the idea.
Yeah. She got it from me. Oh my
from
gosh.
from my
Amazing.
book. Yeah.
Yeah. See, but that's what I kind of liked about it. The one thing I didn't like was that it did kind of force me out of the story and into the world of like the Pike world in general. Because I was like,
Right.
he's referencing himself. I wonder. And then it made me think, I wonder if this book is just going to be kind of meta in general. Like, have I missed something else? Are there things, other like callbacks? Um, and that's the only thing I didn't like about it for me, was because it took me out of, yay, I'm reading, to, I should analyze this.
Right. And I think that's the danger with any Easter egg like that is and that's what we see like specifically the DC movie universe is struggling with. There's a difference between references that are like, oh, I see what you did there, and references that are like, whoa, wait a minute, what are we doing here? So it's such a weird balancing act, and I mean that makes it kind of ballsy to do that, in fact, especially knowing that your readers probably are devouring your books like candy, and they would have read the other one because it came out 2 years ago.
Right. And
It's interesting.
and they would have devoured everything. So they knew what he was doing.
Exactly. But I thought this was an interesting plot. It meandered enough to keep me engaged, and I didn't expect where it was going. Even though I'm spending the entire second half of the book like, Sharon, don't just go into the woods with someone. Really, you were just charged and then released with, like, come on, bring a cop, bring fucking creepy lawyer, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I also
Bring
didn't get.
someone, an adult. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like it seemed like they were just going for a walk, yet somehow they had like their camping gear. And she just got out of jail, and again, back to the mother who doesn't even exist. Like, wouldn't you want to spend time with your mom when you just got out of jail. I mean, I know if I had just gotten out of jail, my mother wouldn't be like, sure, go camping with creepy Chad.
It's good.
That's
Go
fine.
camping specifically to the exact same spot where your friend died.
Right, exactly. So you can look for clues. That seems like a really good idea. With that other weird guy who was also there when your friend died.
Yeah.
That's a great idea
Like
for you to do, Sharon.
There's red flags all over. All over.
Do you think that maybe the reason why her mother's not like that involved is because she is 18?
And could be, but still, I mean,
I feel like
when you just get out of jail,
True. She did just get out.
you're still going. Basically, you've reverted a few years in terms of your adulthood. I think when it comes to your parents' involvement in your life, if they helped, if they helped you just get out of jail, I think.
She didn't so she went out to lunch with her mom. She did see her mom, and she spent time with her and the lawyer. And so she saw her mom. It's not like she just dipped on her. And then also, she's like super clear about the fact that she has like some sort of intuition where she just feels like she wants to go back and see what happened. So I feel like her best friend just died, or is missing, and there's something that's unclear and she doesn't really understand, even though she's been explained, because some of the pieces don't fit. So I feel like it's not like she went there with Chad, like, oh, let's have a romantic camping time fun or anything. So I think that part's her going there is believable and not going home, because why would you go home so you can sit there and worry about have those confusing holes without the wondering. But the camping stuff, I don't why did you have camping gear? Why did she agreed immediately? He's like, oh, we'll have to stay overnight. She's like, okay. That part was weird.
I know that was the weird part. I was like, oh, I thought you just were walking. I did. Right. And they're like, oh,
Sharon basically becomes so compliant with any suggestions at that point.
I think I completely missed the part where he said that they would have to stay the night. Cause I would, it's completely believable how they would just go check it out just for a few hours, Yeah. I missed the part where he said, let's stay the night. So my bad.
Because otherwise, let's go first thing in the morning. So we have a full day, a full on bright daylight to explore this, instead of let's wait till it gets dark and then deal with the same problem we had last time.
What I think what happened was that they were they went earlier in the day, from what I understood, because they were talking about how the sun was high and everything. And then they went into that. She investigated the bridge. She's like, what the fuck happened? I thought there was a bridge here. And then he's like, you want to come see this cave? And she was like, oh, all right. I'll go with you. To get out of it. So that was on their way out. Remember? Because she's like, couldn't we have gone this way the way in? And he was like, no, we can only go this way the way out. You'll see. So they were leaving, I think. And then she was sunbathing and then found the body. Right. And then that was on their way out. So then she finds the body. The cops come and she's like, this does not make sense. How the fuck was she here this whole time? What's going on? I need to see where she fell, firsthand, which that's when they go upstairs, or not upstairs, but climb up. And that's when he's like, well, if we go up there, it's already dark. We're going to have to wait till tomorrow to see stuff. And then I think it was the sun was setting as they were up there. So only he was able to see the little thing inside, the hole, he said, on the ledge or whatever. But it was really a lot of one thing after another that were very convenient. And her intuition, it's oh, good thing you just happened to oh, there's something not right. I kissed him and I got nauseous. Also, I keep putting this dead body with Chad. Yeah. And then how did the ring not get washed away?
I think I enjoyed that a little bit more than it sounds like you did. We actually get a character who's putting things together.
Yeah.
And not immediately too. She knows something's off, but doesn't know what. And then she knows this, but doesn't know why. And then, so I really love that moment of her being like, wait a minute. And so if this happened, then this, and when she's sitting there, and then when, this is going to go into Eternal Enemy, but when she's having that standoff with Chad, where they both know something's wrong, and then they both dive for the backpack.
Yeah. See, that I liked that too, because that's usually when we would have a monologue from the villain who is saying so you found me out. You found out that blah, da, 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 da. You don't really, very rarely get your Pike heroine figuring it out for herself.
Right. And then Chad's monologuing because he's so impressed with himself,
Yeah.
but not necessarily because Sharon needs to know more information because
Exactly.
she's figured.
I feel like he's monologuing, and I wish there had been like a Sharon like thought bubble or something where she was like, "Yeah, dude, I know, like I figured it
We're
out.
already there. What page are you on?
I'm there. That's why I tried to get the knife. Like,
Yeah.
why did
She's
you
like, I just dove off of this rock with a rope. Like, I know you're going to kill me. Like,
Before we move to Eternal Enemy, I do want to mention that the book ends with a sex joke about her lawyer.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't like that because it's been so exciting. But then we talk about John would get her off, but his services might be expensive. You get in trouble again, and it's going to cost you. Sharon wondered if she should get another lawyer. It's like, oh, okay, Pike, come on. That's you have a good ending here. What do we need that? Do we need to be reminded about how creepy her lawyer is?
I think we do because Sharon keeps mentioning throughout the book that she's like a little bit sexually frustrated because of all of her
She
piano
does.
time.
She does. She
So,
does.
again, but that's what makes this so gross because it kind of sounds like she's now into it. Like, should I get another lawyer or should I just let him bang me? We'll
I mean,
see.
he'll get me off again, and
I
then
know. He'll
he'll
get me
get me
off.
out of jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
wasn't clever. Yeah, don't worry. Um, so let's talk the eternal enemy, and so let's talk Chad as villain and Anne as villain because we do have two antagonists here. Just one supersedes the other midway through, which is something else.
So I like Anne a lot as a character so much, and I liked her as an antagonist, but I don't think of her as like once you get to the end of the book, I stopped thinking of her as a villain, but
Sure,
she was
yeah.
still an antagonist. Chad was the better villain to me because he also had like shades of like Kevin Spacey's character in the movie Seven. Like,
Oh yeah,
there's just like there's like a weaseliness that you're not supposed to suspect until
right.
they, start
And
killing
it's
off
very
everyone in your family.
straightforward too. Like it's like he knows it's wrong, and he did it, and he's fine with it. Like this is a sociopath too,
Yes, especially when he
because
gets to that point when he's like, it's easier every time you do it.
right, exactly, yeah. And the reason he killed Jerry and Mom Price, I don't think she has a name, is because they didn't like him. That's it. That's the reason. And
Yeah.
that's I love how simple that is. Because it's like I like this girl and these two didn't like me, so I had to get rid of them. And then I like this girl and she knows I got rid of them, so I guess I got to slit her throat. It's not just kill her. I'm going to slit her throat.
Yeah,
It's
it's such
he's a rough villain.
he is a rough villain, and and the thing is he is a sociopath, but he's also a teenage boy because
Yes.
of course I'm gonna kill them. I have to kill her parents, her mom, sorry, and her brother because they don't like me.
Yeah.
There's it's so teenager because
Yeah, he's a 17-year-old in the book currently. He was 16 because he and Jerry were the same age. So he was 16 when he killed Jerry and presumably 15 when he killed Mom.
right. So I
So
mean,
yeah, he's probably also, uh, a murder is going to stunt your emotional growth more than anything else. So he broke, early on, and then he stopped growing after that first murder, and so it's really made him a fascinating, yet very awful. I want to make this very
yeah,
clear.
very gross. Very
Incel, awful incel but fascinating.
I wish, I kind of wanted like a flashback to Chad's childhood because, so I read a lot of true crime and stuff like that. And I'm always kind of like weirdly obsessed with like that serial killer trifecta. Like all serial killers are, I shouldn't say all, but most of them had, bedwetting till a late age, early mutilation of animals, setting fires, things like that. I'm like, and I feel like Chad would be a bedwetter.
Oh yeah. For sure.
Like easily until he was like 12. Or 13.
And I do find it very interesting. We don't get any of the standard villain shit with him. Like, we don't know what caused it. He doesn't tell us flat out what caused it, which is also a trope of this kind of book, which the killer would be like, oh yeah, my mom didn't love me. So, it's like Billy Loomis in Scream.
Yeah.
Your dad made my mommy run away. It's like, whoa, no, wait.
I know. I was waiting for the monologue where he was like, I didn't have anything. I didn't have money or good looks.
Right.
And there was Anne and she had it all. And he was jealous of her and jealous of the mom and jealous of her brother. But at the same time, he was in love with her. We didn't get that monologue. It was just like, I loved Anne. We were the same person. We had the same thoughts. How did he get there? Like, how did his mind get there?
And also, very interestingly, he and Jerry had very similar situations. He was in love with Anne and she didn't reciprocate. And Jerry was in love with Sharon and she didn't even really notice.
She didn't even know they were dating.
Yeah.
Well, they said that he wasn't really in love with her. He just had like a crush on her. Chad just inflated that to make it seem like it was bigger than it was. Also, I think part of like the reason that Chad maybe flipped was because he had been in love with this girl for 10 years. And then he asks his brother to come over, his brother who's like after her money initially, and then they start dating. So I'd be like, I not that I'd go like incel or anything like that, but like I'd be pretty salty about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dating and specifically fucking in the next room.
Yeah.
So he can hear them.
I mean, if he's already unwell, like not, the darkness or whatever that's inside of him that they mentioned, like that could not have helped matters.
No.
Well, you do actually, we have the interesting idea then that with Paul being dishonorably discharged for aggression issues and willing to go along with a truly psychotic plan of Anne's.
He only doubts for like 30 seconds. I don't know if we should do this. All right, fine.
He's also pretty damaged, it seems.
He is, yeah. Especially when his like only point of like, I don't know, questioning her is like, don't you still need your friend? And she's like, no. And he's like, okay, let's make out.
Well, I mean, the horniness has to, like, I mean, they're still, no matter what's going on, they're horny, teenagers or, early 20s.
Well, Paul is 20.
Yeah, he's 20. He's a man.
20. So he came back from his dishonorable discharge and started dating Anne, who may not have been 18 yet.
No, I wouldn't think she would be.
So, yeah, there's a lot of creepy to go around in this book.
But it's okay because there's no parents around to tell them.
Yeah, no parents to say no.
Yeah, you shouldn't be dating that man.
Absentee parents is the funniest Pikeism because just to not have them because they would complicate the plot. Really, if there were parents who cared at all, probably most of this couldn't have happened.
No, because they probably wouldn't have been going even on like this co-ed camping trip, maybe like randomly with like 20 or 21-year-old guys. One of them a stranger, And
like a weird, creepy guy from the bar, Martyrs, over there.
Exactly. Especially like you can imagine Sharon is leading this sheltered life because of her. She practices piano 8 hours a day. She's going to Juilliard. If there had been parents in the situation, they'd be like, you're not going camping with a bunch of fucking strangers. You have to practice your piano. What if you hurt your hands?
Don't ruin your chance to be at Juilliard.
Right. Yeah.
Let's move on to our favorite section, Thirst, which is about titillation and sexuality in Pike's world. I have a lot for Thirst this time.
I like that you said titillation because I had like my page bent down on like the line where Sharon says, talking about mosquitoes. And she's like, I don't think we have to worry about the mosquitoes biting the front of my chest, Sharon said. At least the male ones. Oh, do I detect a hint of sexual frustration in that comment? Of course, from Chad, as he's like rubbing her back. And that's when she starts to moan.
Yeah.
And then she,
It's
like,
weird.
out of nowhere says to Chad, like, so tell me about your sex life. When clearly he's never kissed a girl. That just
Whenever
seems
someone says
mean.
that too, all I can hear is Tommy Wiseau in the room. So anyway, how's your sex life? It's so odd.
It's not how teenagers, I don't think, have ever talked. Not even in 1990. I know, because I was a teenager in the 90s, not in 1990, and I watched Beverly Hills 90210, and they never said, tell me about your sex life.
So anyway, how's your sex?
So anyways, how was your sex life?
It's funny because Sharon, everything about her doesn't strike me as virgin.
Right.
But she then is given the Pike virginal heroine trope.
Yeah. I mean,
because
if she had sex, she wouldn't have.
Knows. Yeah. It's interesting. And then that comes from the line, how's the romance climaxing? Frequently, Sharon said.
Yeah.
That made me laugh.
It made me laugh too. And then I was like, oh, maybe she is kind of like a hidden slut. And then I'm like, no, she can't be, because she's going to be the one alive at the end.
She's a slut for Juilliard.
Yeah. She's horny for the piano.
Honestly, though, the best Sharon sexual quip, in my opinion, is when Sharon says, I haven't seen a movie in ages. What's playing? Horror films and sex films, Chad said. I think we should see 2 movies.
Yeah,
I liked that one.
I know. She was so flirty in this weird way.
I'm glad you're not wearing a bra, Sharon, Chad says. She giggled. The front of her shirt was creeping up toward her breasts. She didn't care.
She didn't care. He's like rubbing the side boob.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's all about the side boob here. The massage that just creeps into the side boob area.
One day, some girl's going to steal you out of the trunk and ride you till you go flat.
Oh, gosh.
That's the fifth wheel comment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fifth wheel.
Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't highlight that, because that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was so good.
You know, we had that great line about Paul earlier on, and there's a follow-up to that. He was a hunk. He could pick her up with one hand and lay her down with the pressure of his baby finger.
Oh, God.
Gross.
And to go, your point earlier, Jennifer, about stripping down to sunbathe. Anne had stripped down to a pink tissue-sized bikini.
Yes, that was what I was just trying to look for. I'm like, oh God, yeah.
And was stretched out on a towel.
A tissue-sized bikini.
And to follow that up with, the mosquitoes obviously didn't know that Anne was supposed to have the hottest blood to come out of Wonderwood High.
I loved the tissue size because he uses the word tissue, it gives you that feeling that it's like an almost sheer kind of fabric, where very clingy. Like, what if she got wet? It would just come apart right on her body.
As I would say in some of my filthier fiction, the party hats were probably on display.
Oh.
Or turkey's done. Bing.
Oh gosh.
Is that too much? Yeah.
No.
I don't know what that means.
I don't get it.
The thing that pops up on the turkey when it's cooked?
I know what the turkey thing is. I don't know what that is. That a part of an anatomy?
No, nipples when they're hard.
It's nipples. It's a nipple reference.
I didn't get it either. So
Okay. No, listen. I thought you said. Ding,
I'm
I thought you were
perverted
talking about
enough.
little secret. Well, no, I went to secret boner, and I was like, that's how that's the size you're gonna go with, the little thing in the turkey.
No.
For comparison, that's why I was like, wait, maybe I don't get this reference like I think I do. Hang on, and I didn't. It was something different, but
Yes. Does anyone else have any more specific thirst or titillation or sexy lines?
Nope.
Then I'm going to move into moralizing and problematic elements in the writing and plot are die softly section.
I only have
Right off the
one
bat,
for
the
this.
moralizing one I've got is, did you take any hard drugs while you were in jail? No. Why do you say that? Do I sound brain damaged? That's a tough stance they're taking on hard drugs right there. Problematic, the lawyer is problematic. But I also do have the note that Paul had dark gypsy features.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's
Yes.
the one I had too.
Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, it's 1990. We could say dark gypsy features in
You could
1990.
still say that, yeah, back then, before anyone realized
Like how
what
terrible
horrible
that
things
is.
we
I know,
were
like, oh
saying.
gosh, is that what we're saying? Yeah, I thought of that. I was like, ugh, the dark gypsy features, the lawyer of
Yeah. But that lawyer, yeah, that is really the and it's problematic, but it's problematic in a way that knows it's problematic. Like Pike clearly is not on board with this lawyer's tactics.
Yeah, exactly. He's not saying, okay, this is, yeah, Sharon definitely should bone him. He's not saying that, but he's saying, she's gonna have to, but that's just how it works.
Especially now, after she's
Especially
going
now.
to be on trial again for Chad.
Oh, God, for Chad. Yeah, and I
anyone
also,
else?
I'm still confused why there was only suspicion for Paul, like at the very end, when clearly, like, he got half of her money. Like, I don't know why any of this.
Always first
the
blame
boyfriend.
the boyfriend.
Yeah, especially the poor boyfriend with an anger management problem who just inherited half of her money. Like, there should have been like just harder questions, or at least they should have questioned him at all instead of just immediately, arresting Sharon 5 minutes after the first cop got there. And he's like, well, it must be you.
Yeah.
Yeah, our fat and surly cops, our
Fat and
duo
silly.
here.
Yeah.
They both thought that it was Sharon.
I know.
And
They're like,
didn't
we don't
bother
even need to question anybody else.
Well, they asked
Especially
the other people that were there. Like there were witnesses that said that Paul was around the fire with them, or like standing with them when she screamed, and then they all went together to him. So there was like no way for him to have pushed her or been anywhere near there.
No, but there is a way for him to be complicit in something. Like even maybe he conspired with Sharon.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Why didn't anybody say, hey, Sharon, were you banging Paul? Because that would have made more sense on like a Law and Order kind of way.
Yeah.
And I mean, we knew Sharon was poor also, and she's going to Juilliard. So even with a scholarship, that's probably going to be expensive.
Yes. And you would think that, that they would have been like, so your motive might have been money. They didn't even like care that she didn't have a motive.
No, they didn't. It's funny.
Like there was no motive at all. Like, she was my best friend. Yeah. But
why would I kill her?
I know. There's no reason.
Let's move into the season of passage, where we talk specific lines from the book. I've got a lot of great stuff from this one. So I always like to let others go first so I don't just take them all.
I have one.
What do you got?
Okay. When had they first met? When had Anne died? 4 weeks ago? God, it felt like 10 times that long. Time moved slowly, Sharon thought, when one counted it by the path of the sun's rays on the bricks of one cell. I felt like that was beautiful writing.
That is.
Yeah, that's good.
Cassie, you got some?
Yeah, I just have one, but it's like it just made me laugh kind of. And it says, she wasn't going to die. She was going to live. All she had to do was tie her shirt around her head and squeeze her brains back into her skull, and she'd be able to think clearly again. I love that.
The stuff where Anne is concussed and wandering around is so good. Like when she couldn't remember when the moon last had rings around it or a crooked grin on its face.
Yeah.
And then the man in the moon is smoking a cigar. Those are clouds, you idiot.
What didn't we read? What was the other one where they had the laughing gas or something, or they had some sort of gas?
That was the end of Give Me a Kiss.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
That reminded me of that, like this, her being like really woozy and out of it reminded me of that scene where their thinking was just like really like funny and weird. And like they were kind of aware that it was weird, but like
Yeah.
also thinking it. Yeah, I liked it.
It just gets surreal, and it's surreal in such a playfully lovely way. I really enjoyed that stuff with Anne there.
I just had this one line that I really, again, it's Johnny Richmond, my favorite lawyer, because I felt like he was leading to something, but then like we never got anything from it.
Mhm.
So it's Sharon saying, "What are you doing?" she demanded. "You can't prove Paul killed Anne. He wasn't anywhere near her when she went off the cliff. Besides, he loved her." John regarded her curiously. "You five made an interesting group. I wonder if you know who loved who, or who loved what." And I was like, "Oh, what does this mean? Like, who loved what? Like, oh,
Dun,
is
dun,
somebody like on
dun.
drugs? Are we?
What are you
What are you
implying, Johnny?
implying? What are you implying, Johnny?" And then I was like, "Oh, nothing. He was implying nothing." Like they never went back to it. But it was such a. It reminded me of like what like a cop would say in like an old Dragnet show, and it was
Oh
like,
yeah.
"You don't
Yeah.
know who loves
We're
who and who
into the
loves what."
noir stuff. Yeah.
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 So I was just like. It reminded me of just like such like a gumshoe moment. I thought I could like see him in like a weird hat and had a cigarette.
Well, and speaking of noir style lines here, I've got Paul had never really learned to kiss, not the way a woman typically
Yes.
wants to be kissed, and for that she was glad she wasn't a typical woman.
That is so Humphrey Bogart and Lauren
Yeah,
Bacall. I can't even
I
stand
love
it.
it.
Yeah.
And it's there's such, I mean, the writing is very punchy in this book, like really just clever often, and we open with the line, "Anne Rice's hate was alive."
Yeah.
And
And that's a great opening line.
it really is. And then later down that page, she says, "But it'll ruin Sharon. What will become of what I've become?"
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I've got tons from this book. About the jury, but they didn't look real to her. They had 12 heads, but only one mouth that could speak only two phrases, guilty or not guilty.
Nice.
She was doing this out of love as much as hatred. She knew the two emotions weren't nearly so incompatible as people thought. They were like two sides of the same coin, two ends of a torn rope that could one day be knotted.
I found one more too.
Oh, good. Yeah, go. Yeah.
Okay. So, because this one I actually thought was like very beautiful. Almost. Such a word. Two neat syllables and with which to sharpen one's regret. Jerry had almost lived. Ugh. Like, it
That
was.
is really good. Yeah.
I know. That's like poetry.
And it's interesting because, like, when we talk about these books, we're often seeing the evolution of Pike as a writer, because we are bouncing back and forth from later books to earlier books. And this is sort of right in the middle of everything we've read so far, because this is 90. And you're really seeing a lot of the poetic prose coming out. And it emphasizes what a good writer he is in a genre like teen horror that is not as cared about by its authors so much. You clearly see, especially in certain books, the care coming through in his prose, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's sorry, I was just like listening to you.
No,
It's
No, I do that sometimes. I do that with Cooper all the time, and he's like, "Are you guys going to say anything?" I was like, "Sorry, you were just." I was like listening to like TV or something. Like
I
you just sounded
know.
so
I was just
legit.
like enraptured. I was like, that is such
Yeah.
a great point. And I realized
okay.
I was
I
honestly,
love it, but let's not stroke my ego too much here.
but like, so I was just thinking in my head, like, that is so true. And I'm like, oh, I should say it out loud instead of just like thinking it. Yeah. There's a world of difference between reading Fall into Darkness and reading Slumber Party. Like Slumber Party, even though I love Slumber Party, you don't have the poetry there that you have in aspects of this book.
No, that's very proto-Pike Slumber Party.
And it's very like, this is what happens. This, of course, is like, and the characters are again like cookie cutter. Here we're getting people with nuance. our Chad and our Anne are interesting.
Okay, let me give you some more here. A rush of anger shot through her that was almost as good as a goddamn gun.
Very noir.
I love it. And I love it especially because it's a part of what makes me really like Sharon is how angry she is about all this. Like a lot of Pike's protagonists are very passive when they're confronted by the villain. Like they take on the stance of, oh, did I deserve all this? And so they just passively listen as the villain is monologuing. Sharon isn't taking any shit. Like not only does she throw back all this shit at Chad, but then she lubes up the rope. It's just really I love her. I love her as a character. I'm more and more like her as we talk. Whereas her voice was enough to make Ivory weep, he could sing in tune, and that's about Fred. There, he could sing in tune. I have this specifically for Becca.
Yay.
The red gobs of blood and white chips of skull, and Jerry's wide open eyes staring up at her in helpless sorrow, asking her, so it seemed, where his life had gone and why.
I truly do love it. We love gore.
And then we call back to it later with Anne. All of a sudden, everything was reminding her of Jerry, especially the dark goop dripping out of the side of her skull. Her brains would drip out next.
Yes.
It's so good. This is fun. I love when Pike is referencing sequels. Why would the girl die just because she looks like you? Anne asked, thinking about Sharon's comment. I don't think I have a face for sequels, Sharon replied. There is some beautiful prose about Utah and the landscape, about the river, and specifically the visceralness that he gets into as these events are unfolding, because we're talking about things like Anne jumping off the cliff. That's something that happens in like 30 seconds overall. But we get paragraphs and paragraphs of the way it feels and how how our characters are in enjoying it or exploring it and their emotional depth. It's really very interesting how deep he goes in with it.
Yeah, it was very visceral and evocative of how you would think that you would be experiencing it. Like, because, fear, it goes by in a second, but it feels like forever. And I loved that they took the time of Anne's entire fall. Yeah. Because I was like, it was beautiful. Like the rush, the pulling back, and just like the confusion of everything, even kind of before she hits her head, there's a confusion there because like her body is in like this fight or flight mode. So it's beautiful and kind of stream of consciousness, the way it's written.
Yeah. It's got an urgency and it's got an adrenaline pump.
And like a rhythm, like I could feel her swinging back and forth on that rope.
For sure. Okay, I have a weird line. Anne had an extremely high tolerance for pain. She wouldn't take a shot when she went to the dentist for a filling. Who declines the shot?
I mean,
even if you have a tolerance.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Like, as a person, I don't get that. Like, it's just like, huh?
And then we get into the Pikeisms. I mean, the most obvious one is Anne, which is the name of Pike's sister. And Anne comes up as a reference in multiple Pike books. I just started noticing the left-handed thing. Anne is left-handed.
Yes.
And we talked a little bit about left-handed last episode here. I really like to point out the foreshadowing, and this week we have Chekhov's bug spray. which
Yes.
conveniently has a label on it that says, "Warning, do not spray in the eyes." I mean, at
Thank
that
goodness
point,
for that warning.
you've got to know that that's getting sprayed in somebody's eyes by the
Yeah.
time this book is over. Uh,
Yeah, the bug spray and the knife. Like that
Yeah.
like okay, he's going to randomly give Sharon like this huge ass knife when they go camping.
the one I didn't know was Chekhov's Vaseline. I knew there was a
Yeah.
reason we mentioned it, but I had no idea where they were going with it.
I know. I kept
Although I
thinking
know Vaseline is flammable, so I
that's
thought
what
maybe they were going in that direction.
I thought that's what they were going to go to. I was like, okay, so we've got the bug spray, which is also flammable. We've got the petroleum jelly, which is also flammable. And I'm like, okay, they're going to set the rope on fire. And I'm like, is there a lighter? Is there a lighter someplace? Yes,
Yeah,
they're
no
starting a
lighters,
fire. Yeah.
just candles. That's the only flame we get there in the back half. And the one other Pikeism is women fancying women. Where Sharon is looking at where Anne is sunbathing, a beautiful body in a beautiful land. Sharon sat beside her, admiring Anne's lines and curves. God must have overseen the growth of Anne in the same way he had guided the sculpting of Sunset Park.
Oh my gosh.
I wish he would just have these characters in love, honestly.
Yeah. Like, or they could at least experiment once or twice.
Yeah.
Like reference
Let's have a little bi curiosity, even repressed bi curiosity that makes people self-loathe. He's already halfway there.
He's halfway there with Chad.
Well, yeah.
But he's also halfway there with Anne because, she is jealous of Sharon's, musical ability. Like so like there was like this kind of back and forthness with them when Anne did like Sharon, how they talked about how she would just like sit and watch her play for hours and listen to her play. And I'm like, yes, that's definitely normal behavior.
It's like we almost approach the type of love we see in Hannibal, where Will and Hannibal are in love in a way that is not traditional love and are attracted to each other in a way that is not traditional fucking attraction. And that we're so close in this book.
Yeah, exactly.
and yeah.
I know. I was like, oh, could they just be murder wives? No. Because I thought,
and that is the Alexa close factor that we have not gotten since, because Alexa is flagrantly bi.
We love it.
So, yeah. Let's move into last act and get our final thoughts and ratings. So, Jennifer, as our guest, you get to go first. Now, this is out of 5 pikes.
Okay.
But you can also throw a little something extra on if you want. We'll stick a head on the pike, and that sort of oomphs it up a little bit.
Oh.
So 1 through 5, and we are rating based on Pike's oeuvre. This is not like if you give it 5 stars, it's not like 5 stars amongst all books ever.
Right. I'm not comparing it to Haunting of Hill House and The Stand. It's just
this is why we're using pikes and not stars.
Oh, then I would say definitely 4 pikes for me.
4 pikes.
4 pikes with a little bit of Vaseline on top of the 4th pike. So it could easily slide up or down. Depending on my mood.
If you poke anyone with those pikes, it will be easy penetration. Let's just say. Becca, how about you? Where are you at?
I'm thinking I have nothing fun to add to this, so I'm just gonna say 3.5 pikes. Just some simple pikes.
Just simple pikes.
Yeah, just simple pikes this time. I already liked it, like, while reading it. Like, I was really into it. I read it pretty fast, and I wanted to know what was going to happen. I really enjoyed the split between Anne being the villain and then Chad being the villain. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. But listening to you guys talk about it, cements the fact that I really, really did enjoy this one. You know what? I'm going to give it 4. I'm going to move it up.
Whoa, yeah.
That's what the Vaseline did.
One of Becca's highest.
Yeah, that is from the Vaseline. Yeah, is that your highest?
I think Monster is still the highest.
Monster, yeah.
I think they might actually be
Did
on
you
Monster and this
dive
one are
into-
two of my favorites, so I'm really happy to hear this, Becca.
well, you have
And this,
good
I know that I like some of the sciencey ones you might not like in the future.
Yeah.
They're coming up soon, but I'm glad at least you like these two.
Yeah, it really, I wanted to keep going when reading it. It wasn't like one of those ones where it felt like a chore to read, you know? And
Yeah.
the only thing I didn't really
Midnight
care,
Club.
yeah. The only thing I didn't really care for is that like none of the characters really like I know you guys like Sharon, but like none of the characters really stuck out to me that much. They all just seemed pretty basic. So that's the only thing that I didn't care for, was just like characters.
There's certainly, most of them are not very complex.
Right.
Okay, Cassie, you said it's one of your favorites. I'm very curious what your rating is here.
I give it 5 pikes with a bunch of eyeball belly fished.
Wait, what?
Eyeball belly fold fish. There we go.
Okay.
A bunch of little fishies with bellies full of eyeballs that are swimming around my 5 pikes.
Gross.
So they're swimming. So the pikes are in the pool. There.
Yes,
Cool.
next to the body.
Gotcha. 5 pikes. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go with 4. I really enjoyed this. Despite the fact that it's very similar plotted to Gimme a Kiss, it's much better than Gimme a Kiss. And I'm all for a writer who's churning out 3 books a year, basically revising his past work. Because essentially we've seen Pike do that. Like, I'm going to try that again, just better. So I'm going to go with 4 pikes, and I'm just putting brain matter all over the ground next
Some
to them.
skull chunks too, or just
Yeah.
brain matter? Okay, good. All right.
Well, I mean, there's when you get brain matter, there's usually chunks of skull involved there too. I feel like.
I mean, not necessarily. If you saw the movie
No.
Happy Birthday to Me, where they chop open a girl's head and like do like weird brain surgery, like the skull is completely removed, so there would not be.
That's true. Okay,
But that's
okay.
a very
I mean,
specific reference.
and
But it was
speaking of Hannibal, we also have a skull completely removed and brain matter involved. So there's
true.
that. Okay, that's true. That's true. But I'm going to put chunks of skull in with the brain matter.
Okay, good.
For sure. Which brings us to the end. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Fall into Darkness. I hope you had a good
so
time.
much. I did. It was great. I love to talk about books with people, and especially like getting to talk about Christopher Pike for a while. It's just been kind of a childhood dream come true.
Aw. Well, there are more books, and especially when we get to the series. So we'll talk. Maybe you join us again. In the
I
future.
would love that.
In the meantime, will you tell our listeners where they can find your work and you online?
Yes. So everybody that's been listening, thank you so much. My name again is Jennifer Ann Gordon. I am a Gothic horror novelist. So I have a book called Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent, which won the Kindle Award for Best Horror Novel of 2020. It also won the Authors on the Air Award for Best Horror Novel of 2020 and was a finalist in American Book Fest's Best Book of the Year for Horror for 2020 as well. So that was Beautiful, Frightening, and Silent. I also have From Daylight to Madness and When the Sleeping Dead Still Talk. Those are both Victorian-based horror novels. And they are all on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, or the easiest way to find me and all my social media is just to go to my website, which is jenniferanngordon.com, and that is Anne with an E, like Anne of Green Gables. And all the links to my social media are there. The links to my books are there. Reviews of my books are there, so you can, read a little bit more about them. And that's the easiest.
Thank you, Jennifer. Becca, where can we find more of you online?
So you can find my blog at astoldbybex.wordpress.com, where I mostly talk about books. I'm on Twitter at astoldbybex and on Instagram at readwithbex.
Thank you, Becca. Cassie, where are we finding you?
I was getting dressed. Okay. I have a blog at letsgetgalactic.com, and then you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at ControlAltCassie, CTRLALTCassie. I also have an Etsy, and it is etsy.com/shop/letsgetgalacticart.
You can buy a lot of stuff from Cassie. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
You can find me coopersbeckett.com and at coopersbeckett on all the social media. I'm very, 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 very political right now on Twitter. So if you're not interested in hearing my opinions, don't follow me there and then tell me to stick to talking about Christopher Pike, because I'll just fucking block you at this point.
Has that happened?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've got no more fucks to give. None at all. I'm revealing it here first because I find that telling about things on podcasts actually gets me to do them. I am working on a Sierra style adventure game based on my Spectral Inspector series of books, and I'm very excited about it. So I'm working on that right now, and I'm hoping to actually start producing a video game, which is weird and new.
Cool.
But it's 2021, and the world, it could end at any time. For fuck's sake, we gotta try new things. We gotta try.
Yay.
Cassie, you tell our listeners where they can find the PikeCast online.
Yeah, you can find us on pretty much all social media at the PikeCast. It's all one word. You can share all of your Pike books with us by using the hashtag show us your Pike. We'd really love to see them. We can share them to our stories if you share them to us on Instagram, or we can retweet if you share it on Twitter. We also have a Patreon, which we really, really appreciate our patrons who support us and help us keep this stuff going. You can find us on there, also the PikeCast. We also have websites or links to everything on our website as well as in our social media. And then we would really, really appreciate it if you guys could leave us a review on your listening method of choice, because that really helps us out too.
Yes, please, please. Okay, listeners, your homework for next time is we're going to go back in time a year, and we're going to go to 1989's Scavenger Hunt.
Sorry.
Wow. Clearly, at least one person is very excited about Scavenger Hunt.
Sorry, ignore that.
But thank you again, Jennifer. Thank you, Cassie and Becca, for a great discussion. And pleasant dreams, Pikers. We will see you next time on the PikeCast.
Woo!
You survived the night, friends. You can peek out from under your covers and see the first blues of dawn out the window. Thanks for spending the night with the PikeCast, and we hope you'll join us again next time. Until then, Pikers, pleasant dreams.
So, Cassie, why don't you take it away?
Am I muted or unmuted right now?
You're unmuted.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Sorry. The button doesn't say, it doesn't have a word, so it just like crosses out or doesn't, I don't know.
I know. It really should be like red.
Yeah.
Like every other thing ever.
Agreed. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
All right. They said she murdered her best friend. The trial is for murder. Anne Rice is dead. Her best friend Sharon McKay stands accused, but there is nobody. And sorry, let me start that one over. But there is no body. And the three witnesses to the crime only heard what happened and did not see it. Okay, sorry.
The nobody, that's just Clue all over. That's just all I can hear is Mr. Body's body. It's gone. Okay. I'm sorry. I had to get that out. Becca,
where do you want me to start?
Why don't you just start at the beginning?
Okay.
Let's just do it fresh.
All right. They said she
Take
murdered
two. I did a director's clapper.
I like it. I like it a lot. Okay.
I really want to just say, I love, let me try that again where I sound coherent.